That is a brilliant effort on goal.
He's playing with confidence. Deserves to see inside 50.
Inside 50, good hands.
Drilling it into centre half forward. That was end-to-end football at its best.
Back-to-back goals either side of quarter time.
But he's done it for Bulldogs.
I'd somebody for you. There ain't no wall I would run through. In your corner when we're ringing the bell. Come hell or high water. I'd fight somebody for you.
And indeed, it's good to be back for season 2026. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Around the WAFL in season 2026, live on the WA Sporting Hub YouTube channel, an amalgamation with Front Row Screens and Associates. We thank them for having us on board in 2026, and as well as your podcast provider. This is our first show of what's going to be an exciting year of WAFL football over the next 7 months. But I won't be doing this alone. As you can see alongside me, he was one of the voices of the main event on WAFL W Grand Final Day. He was in the chair for the Sandover, the world's the oyster, for my right-hand man, Ethan Roth. G'day, Rothy. Welcome back for another great season.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's been a long off season, but year number 3 in the chair with you and Around the WAFL, and I cannot wait. The footy is very close now.
No doubt about it. WAFL W opening in a mere 5 days. We can't wait for the season to open, and of course WAFL on Good Friday. And what about our new home, Rothy? Of course, it's familiar to you as well. A big thanks to the Hen House Studios down here in Osborne Park. It's our new recording home for 2026.
Yeah, it's a great setup. The curtains look beautiful in the background as well, so if you're watching along, you'll be able to see that. And yeah, great space, close to Leederville Oval as well, so nice and central to a couple of WAFL clubs, and right in the heart of Perth here.
We also must thank our great supporters of Around the WAFL for season 2026, Front Row Screens, who of course do a great job in putting together the coverage for WAFL League, WAFL W, Colts, and much more in the football world. Of course, Sullivan Logistics, proud supporters of the WAFL. They're back on board the WAFL in 2026, and also a couple of new backers, District Promotions, thanks to Barry Miles and his team, marketing, creative work for any Perth event that you're looking to host, and Grant's Car Stereo in Morley. Big shout out to Grant Louderback and his team for jumping on board in 2026. Great supporters of WA football and WA.
Yep, that's for sure. Wouldn't be able to do it without them. So yeah, get around their businesses, and yeah, I'm sure we'll hear plenty from them in the 2026 year ahead.
No doubt about it. And speaking of 2026, we got a little taster for you on your screen of what's to come in the 6 months ahead here on Around the WAFL. Of course, this is our first show of the year, and we've got recap episodes on Monday night and Thursday night, with the exception of the WA Day round, which we'll recap on Tuesday night following the big matches on WA Day. Finals edition from September the 2nd, grand final countdown on the 16th. We've got some cool stuff lined up for that, so watch this space. And of course, on September 24th, Rothy, that was the season that was. So a huge 7 months ahead with plenty of great content for our fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the season that was, it's a long time away now, so I'm sure there's going to be so many storylines and results and narratives aplenty between now and then. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens across multiple levels, but I'm sure we'll be looking back and thinking, wow, that flew by.
It certainly did. And of course, more great bits of content on our season 2026 roadmap. Around the WAFL on location. So I'll be going around to grounds of the 10 WAFL clubs and 9 WAFL W clubs across the season, starting with Swan Districts and their WAFL W side on Thursday. Rothy, of course, you'll have your Colts report beginning on the 2nd of April, of course, and no doubt about it, it's going to be a big, big night of WAFL Colts when it begins on April the 2nd. You'll have great insight from all the clubs, and Colts, you've had a great involvement with the Bray and Ethan show, and you're continuing that on a great scale.
Yeah, and looking forward to the season opener as well. It's on a Thursday night, Peel and East Fremantle, so that'll kick things off nicely on the long weekend. And yeah, obviously it's always an exciting period, under 18s footy, but I think the next year to two, with a lot of talent coming through, and I guess you look at Tasmania's entrance to the AFL, there's a lot more interest in terms of identifying talent early as well, so a few players to showcase across the board.
No doubt about it. And also the Player of the Year votes, which you're going to get us started with on the 30th of March when WAFL W round 1 concludes, and yours truly when it concludes for the men's on April the 6th. And the top 3 plays of the week. So we got something new for our fans. Some of the biggest highlights from the weekend that was in football. So it's Around the WAFL's biggest season, and there is still plenty to come over the next 6 months.
Yeah, and when it comes to highlights, I mean, it's one of the tougher probably jobs to do, but one of the more enjoyable ones, because people are always going to miss out. But I think that probably creates plenty of fun without, picking the criteria of that.
Yeah, and that's what makes Around the WAFL a fun part of the WAFL landscape. Okay, that's your teaser. Let's get right down to business for season 2026 with a short reflection on the year ahead. But before we do, Of course, as we stated on our social media pages, Rothy, tonight's episode is dedicated to two WAFL legends that sadly left us in recent weeks. Billy Dempsey, over 340 games at West Perth, an Indigenous trailblazer in WA football, and of course, media doyen, legendary WA football caller, Dennis Cometti.
Yeah, a couple of legends that we're obviously dedicating the show to, and condolences to friends, family, and I guess the wider community, the amount of people that they would have touched, whether it be on field, off field. Dennis Cometti, obviously the voice of AFL in my time, and grew up with him and idolised what he was able to do, and that's not even mentioning what he did at West Perth back in the day as a coach, as a player, and then Dempsey as well, just another icon, and you don't have to look at their CV, even if it was a bit before our time, to realise that some of the things they've done, or probably all the things that those two individuals did, probably never be replicated.
The CVs they possess speak for themselves. This one's for you, Billy and Den, our season opening edition of Around the WAFL for 2026. Now, last year, we're going to reflect on last year a little bit here, Rothy, on our first show. 2025 was a season of excitement and drama, wasn't it? In particular, and since the WAFL W was starting up in 5 days' time, the closest final series in WAFL W history in the modern format. 4 games separated by 5 points in a cumulative margin, fittingly with a thrilling grand final to climax the finals.
Oh, it was next level, wasn't it? I mean, for the highest or the biggest differential in game in a final series to be 2 points really speaks volumes of the final series. And it got down to the last quarter, and Claremont, obviously, dynasty well and truly, but Swan Districts, they won't be forgetting about that, and redemption will be in their sights. But it just shows you how far the competition's come. We've sort of, even though Claremont did win and East Fremantle did make finals, for a while there it did feel like it was only those two teams, but with the inception of Perth and improvement of other teams, Subiaco, finishing top 2, albeit not having the finish to the end that they wanted, it just shows you how equal we are getting, which is what you want.
And Perth getting 3 wins to add to that about the Demons, the best season by an expansion team, and they've recruited very well in the off-season. We'll talk about the player moves very shortly here on Around the WAFL, our season 2026 summit on the WA Sporting Hub and your podcast provider. Also, Subiaco, what a story, of course, to get to the grand final, dominate the competition, only the bundle in the preliminary final via Swan Districts, and they were another story as well. The mighty Swannies, coached by Jason Burton, they got into the grand final, they almost snatched it and almost ended the dynasty, but gee, what a side they were.
Yeah, they did it the hard way, didn't they? And I guess all teams, particularly those preliminary final teams, Swan Districts, Subiaco, they've lost a few to the draft, so that's going to be really interesting, particularly Subiaco, I think, and credit should be go to them, and I guess WA football as a whole. We had the first pick 1, Olivia Warmorans went to Richmond, pick 1, so that happened obviously between now and the last time we recorded, so that'll be a void Subiaco will have to fill, in Swan Districts losing Costa Dario as well. So we speak about the talent, and they're being identified, so that's, I guess, a challenge for all WAFL and WAFL W clubs is it's the next soldier up type mentality.
Absolutely, and of course being a feeder to the AFL in a way of recruiting talent to any of the AFL teams, as we saw with Olivia Warmorans getting the number 1 pick in the draft, as you alluded to. On the men's side, 2025 may not be remembered for the home and away season, because that was a bit of a downer, not a lot of close games. The 5 decided with 2 rounds to go, but the final series well and truly made up for it. And of course, as much as everyone wants to talk about South Fremantle and their premiership win, which was richly deserved, of course, and a great grand final, to me, the real story in 2025 was Perth. Their rise to another September campaign, their first finals win in this century, I should say, against East Fremantle, and the support and the loyalty and the belief that the fans have got in that Perth Football Club playing group really shows that Perth are going to be on for a big year.
And the Monkeys off the back now as well. I think now that they have won a final, that sort of close to 3-decade streak, if you like it the other way, is gone. So I think they can almost start a new slate. But having said that, they've got that core group. They've recruited, I know we'll get into it, they've recruited Charlie Dean, who's going to be one of the premier backs of the competition, coming from a big club like Collingwood. So Perth, the sky's the limit, you'd think, for what they can achieve this year.
Certainly, and of course the rise of East Perth to get into another grand final as well. Claremont has always been up there, and also South Fremantle, when you're looking at the best story from that club when they won the premiership was Hayden Schloith, who retired immediately following the grand final. South Fremantle, they were a club that wanted success immediately when Craig White was appointed coach, and he got the flag in his first year, carrying on the first-year trend of premiership coaches.
Yeah, and the challenge is to go back-to-back. It's not easy. Records will suggest, it's a lot harder to do than to win the first one. But, he's got a young group. He's a young coach himself, so I'm sure the motivation, and especially guys who didn't play in that coming up, either from Colts or who missed out as well, is going to be a driving factor for them.
No doubt about it. What about another team that I reckon could be on a slight climb, maybe not to the 5, but they could battle it out? Subiaco, they had a downer year in 2025, but the big reflection for me is how their young kids stood up against sides like East Fremantle in what was the game of the year back in round 12, and also the way that they've recruited in the off-season as well, with Jared Schofield returning to the helm, and also a couple of former AFL-listed players, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail later, really rejuvenating the Lions lineup, and I think the signs really began in the middle of last year.
It's somewhat crazy the impact of one individual can have, particularly when they had success like Schofield has had, in the mid to late 2010. So yeah, he's got a couple of recruits there. It's probably a watch this space in terms of the guys coming up. A few guys leaving the club as well. So I guess it has gone both ways, but it's going to be interesting to see the depth for them. I don't think it's a case of, their best players performing. Of course it is, but I think it's going to be a case of who's coming up from underneath.
That remains to be seen, who does come up from underneath the Colts and going into the big league side for Subiaco, as they look to be a rejuvenated playing group in 2026. Well, that's a short reflection on 2025, but that's in the past. We now focus on the now. After the break, we're going to answer some of your questions that you've given to us over the last 48 to 72 hours before our first recording of the year, and we'll also give you a nice little plug on the WAFL Footy Facts tipping competition, which is back for 2026, the longest WAFL tipping competition in the history of the WAFL, and also pre-season moves of WAFL and WAFLW clubs heading into the season ahead. Stay where you are. We'll be back on our first edition of Around the WAFL, our season 2026 summit, live on the WA Sporting Hub YouTube channel and on your podcast service.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the WAFL, our first show for season 2026, our season summit, as we look forward to a massive year in football. Let's get to some of the questions from our viewers and fans that they've been asking us on our socials, on Facebook and Instagram. We really do appreciate your feedback over the last couple of days as we build up to an exciting season of WAFL football in both the WAFL and the WAFLW competition. Wayne via Facebook has opened up the chat room on Around the WAFL. He said, I'd like a discussion on the previous 25 years of appointments in the top positions in the WAFL and their associated clubs. Well, good question, Wayne, but to discuss all that would take up an entire show. But I think when you're looking at appointments in the coaching ranks, the WAFL has really got it right with some of the big clubs over the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, we just spoke about Jared Schofield before, so there's one straight off the bat, and obviously it's a different era now. But whether it be coaches or staff, CEOs as well, that would take a while. I would love the challenge to be able to do that, dig around a bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about that appointment of the WA Football CEO that was made during the off-season. Brad Wirra, former Fremantle player, announced as the new CEO of WA Football. He'll officially start his role in May, and he's got a great vision for WA football and the future of football in this state.
Yeah, and not to say you have to play at the top level to be a CEO. There's so many, more non-CEOs who have played football, but the fact that he's played at the highest level probably gives him that extra bit of experience and can probably think what do the players want, maybe a bit more so than's been done in the past.
And of course, the business acumen that he's accumulated following his playing days made him the top candidate for the new CEO role. He's taking over from Michael Roberts, who's the outgoing CEO come the start of May. Bob has chimed in via Facebook. Thank you, Bob. He says, hello, boys. You talked about the grand final crowd last year, in particular about ticket prices. What do you think the WAFL should follow what the Devils did during the VFL opener last weekend? I, for one, would agree, because the crowd was only 23,000 on September of last year, which was disappointing to say the least, because it was a great spectacle that we were looking forward to. South Fremantle and East Perth in the grand final, beautiful day, and the $20 price may not have been the best, because you want to get as many heads in there as much as possible, maybe 35 to 40,000 for a grand final that promised so much and delivered so much, but unfortunately some of the crowd wasn't there.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was actually $40 or upwards of $45 for the grand final specifically.
Gee.
So I think, in this day and age, that is asking a lot. So, yeah, I know it has to go both ways. Obviously, you have to make money as well, especially when you're a premier venue like Optus Stadium. But yeah, it's hard to comment on that side of it because I don't know all the ins and outs. But from a first glance, it does seem a bit pricey. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's hope that the WAFL, to their credit, can react correctly and make sure that more fans attend the grand final, and especially with the prospect of being a Saturday night grand final if the Dockers and the Eagles can't host the preliminary final. So imagine the pressure that the WAFL would be under.
Yes, we'll watch this space. Bit to play out between now and then, but that would be a spectacle and a half, to say the least.
It would be incredible. None of the other state leagues have done it, so we could create some history in September. Natalie via Instagram has asked you, Rothy, a question in regards to the WAFL W. She says, Ethan, you've been close with the WAFL circle. Do you think the top 4 teams that made it last year could make it this year, or do you think the finals monopoly will be broken and the comp will be opened up a lot more?
I think there might be 1 or 2 teams that can come in. I mean, you look at the teams that missed out, so a team like West Perth and South Fremantle, they were right in it until the last round, and if results had gone their way, then they'd be right in there. I think a team like Perth, if they they've recruited well, if they build off the base of what they did in their first season, sky's the limit for them, I think, as well. So yeah, those are probably the 3 teams I can maybe see coming from outside the top 4. But then again, it's anyone can win on their day, can't they?
Absolutely, and we saw with Perth winning 3 games, Swan Districts making the finals, Subiaco making the finals, and also Claremont continuing on their dominant dynasty. But it goes to show anybody can win. And with players switching clubs and players, finding new clubs or returning to the WAFL W circle, it's going to make 2026 very interesting. Plenty of players to look out for. And following up from Natalie's question, I think the competition is going to be even more exciting because of the backing that they got. It was announced today, earlier on before the recording, that ATCO is going to be supporters of the WAFL W competition. The ATCO WAFL W 2026 is what it's going to be officially called. So ATCO providing great support for women's football in this state. Yeah,
nice to have a standalone sponsor as well. I think, it goes to show how far we've come, and just on women's footy as a whole. If got recalled to me the other day that if you had started Oz Kick as a girl and gone all the way through, you would have had a full run at it now. So I think the younger players, almost in a way, are leading the way.
They certainly are, and well done to WA Football and ATCO for securing a great partnership. The ATCO WAFL W 2026 has a good sound to it, just quietly. Fiona via Facebook. Thank you, Fiona, for your question. I think sides like Subiaco and West Perth could make the 5, but I can't decide. Only 1 team in my finals ladder for 2026. Can you help? Tough task. Well, Rothy and I outlined way too early WAFL predictions with help of WA Football, thanks to Jordan McArdle and company. And we found it pretty tough to see if those 3 teams, if they were in a logjam, to only pick 1 that could make the 5. I've got to say Swan Districts. I think Swan Districts, with the players that they're getting back via, after a long spell of injury, case in point, Bassini, True and Collins, who are looking really good in this pre-season. I've checked out a couple of their training sessions and they are fit as fiddles. They're matching the intensity of the experienced league boys and they'll be ready to go. But the players they've got coming out of the Colts as well. So for me, I think Swan Districts to help Fiona here would be the team I reckon could make the 5.
Yeah, and I think on their end, probably the reason why they didn't, get up and running last year was because of injuries, and not to say the other two teams didn't, but obviously, Swan Districts had more injuries, so that's probably, coming off a prelim the year before, pretty dramatic drop-off, and but when you have key injuries, particularly to key position players like Collins, Bassini, you can't replace them. It's as simple as that.
No, absolutely. And with new faces coming in, Clint Hinchcliffe, the former Big Bash cricket player, is applying his trade in WA football. He's been playing in a Premier Cricket semi-final recently as well, so he's a jack of all trades, and Andrew Prune does welcome that.
Yeah, and I guess that flexibility is the key there, allowing him to be able to do that and still trusting that he's going to be able to commit to a WAFL program and the rigours of semi-professional football. So I think that's important as well, for these guys to come from different sports and have a crack at the WAFL. There needs to be that flexibility in training and a bit of trust as well.
It certainly is. Trust is very important for any WAFL team, especially when they're pursuing that ultimate dream of a premiership. George on our Instagram page at Around The WAFL has also chimed in. Thank you, George. Really loving your passion here. He says, been a lot of bickering on social media about the salary cap in the WAFL. I think WAFL have done a great job in setting a precedent for those that cheat the cap. What do you make of the bickering? I think there's a lot of unnecessary bickering, if I'm being honest, because the salary cap is at $200,000, and okay, there are concessions allowed, but what the WAFL, to their credit, is doing is trying to make the competition as even as possible. Okay, maybe that didn't work to an extent with South Fremantle dominating, only losing one game, but I think the bickering just sort of needs to ease off a little bit. I think, some fans just need to take it easy because, okay, teams have cheated the cap and they've paid for it, with South Fremantle and East Fremantle getting points deductions. That's the precedent they've set. What do they expect? For teams to be stripped of wins and kicked out of the finals? Please. They've set a precedent and they're going to remain with it.
I think the footy needs to start, Paul. That's my sort of take on it. I think, bickering and noise is normal, but I think probably a bit more just when there's no footy to talk about and results, etc. So, hopefully, I know it's been impacted a lot, every couple of years, this issue, but I think when you see it happen from a couple of other teams, it probably makes teams just have that extra bit of security that they hope they're doing the right thing.
Absolutely, and of course, no salary cap infractions by the clubs, which is good news, no doubt about that, because we want the footy to start. We want to be talking about footy, not salary cap issues, no doubt about that. Brittany via our Instagram has chimed in. This will be the last question that we'll answer for the moment. We'll get to more a little bit later on. Brittany on our Instagram says, I'm a Bulldogs fan, especially their WAFL W team, and I think they can make finals. Ash Gomes' arrival from the Sharks as the number one midfielder is huge, but Steph Waddling as coach is even bigger. I'm confident about the season. Do you think they can make the 4? Yes, I reckon they can. You've got a coach of premiership calibre in Steph Waddling who's crossed enemy lines to go over to South Fremantle. And you've got Ash Gomes, who I will say, along with Crystal Petrevski and Jamie Harkin, is the best running midfielder in the WAFL W competition. I reckon those two could really provide a big boost for South Fremantle's fortunes in 26.
They'll add experience, there's no question about that. And I think, a couple other recruits, Matty Evans and Tash Entwistle from East Fremantle as well, that'll help with their running game. And Madison Evans is a great mark as well. So that youth, but also experience coming into it will be vital. For mine, I think they can make finals. I'm not questioning that. I think there's probably some concerns up forward. Zoe Huggett's left the club, which we'll get into. She was the main goal kicker last year. It did sort of feel like if she didn't kick a winning score, they wouldn't win. You've also got Poppy Stockwell, who got drafted, but she's gone to Perth now as well. So they're the two premier forwards up to this point. They're going to have to find some other answers to goals. So that's my only concern at this point. But then again, to watch this space.
No, you make a good point about South Fremantle's forward line. They are void of those key weapons. It's all about who they're going to find as that number one goal-scoring weapon in the forward line. But South Fremantle, with the experience and resources that they've got, I'm sure they'll find someone to fill in those shoes. Thanks, everybody, for your questions. We'll get into more a little bit later on. But before we go to our next break, Rothy, do you know a man by the name of Rick Gauchi?
I do, yep. He does an unmatched job when it comes to WAFL Footy Facts.
He does, and it's a great help for all the commentators alike that are looking to get those big numbers out surrounding all the 10 WAFL clubs. Well, his WAFL Footy Facts tipping competition is back for 2026. We can't tell you more at this stage, but what we can tell you is there's some great prizes up for grabs when the WAFL season begins, and at the end of the season, it'll be the top 3 that will win some great prizes, but we can't tell you at this stage yet. You'll have to find out on Thursday when our WAFL W preview episode for round 1 drops. So watch this space. The WAFL Footy Facts tipping competition is back for 2026. It's gone for an 8th year. Incredible dedication by the fans. Thanks to Rick Gauci for putting out some great numbers and putting on a great tipping competition as well. It's a remarkable competition, and it certainly sets the best from the rest.
Yeah, sign up if you can. It's tipping is probably no harder job in footy, but WAFL footy, when the competition's tight, I know last year might not have been the tightest competition as a whole, but this year hopefully promises to be that.
It certainly will. Let's take a break, and when we do come back, we'll get into the pre-season moves of all the 10 WAFL clubs, who's gone and who's arrived at your WAFL club, and the expectations of all the 10 WAFL clubs as we head into season 2026. This is our opening edition of Around the WAFL, the season 2026 summit. We'll be back with more after this.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the WAFL, our first show for season 2026, and we're bringing it to you on the WA Sporting Hub YouTube channel, amalgamation with Front Row Screens and Associates, and on your podcast provider. We thank you for joining us on our opening show of what is going to be an exciting year of Around the WAFL, so stay tuned over the next 6 months. Rothy, pre-season moves have been thick and fast for the 10 WAFL clubs, and we're going to go in ladder order to see where your club has landed and what players your club has signed on for 2026. We'll start fittingly with the reigning premiers South Fremantle. They're looking to go back-to-back for the first time since the 1950s, and while they've lost some experience, they've been able to gain a good solid unit in the name of Aidan Hall from the Claremont Football Club. But how they're going to replace all that experience is going to be a hard task as they pursue back-to-back.
Yeah, it will be. I guess the good thing for them is, and no disrespect to these players, a lot of those guys that they have lost were sort of on the outer. So Dylan Main obviously didn't play in that premiership. Great leader, tremendous premiership captain, and that's not that should be overlooked. Toby McQuilkin was sort of on the outer as well. Hayden Schloeth, we kind of knew he was coming towards the end after that comeback, and fiddly ends it with the premiership. Zach Strom as well, probably no surprise that he's hung him up and finishes on that note. I think Jackson Adams is going to be a pretty big out. I think obviously signing with Tasmania in the VFL and winning his first game with them, obviously that run and carry premiership player, but I don't sort of blame him too much for going and exploring that opportunity, especially when he's got AFL ambitions and is still 19, 20 years of age. And
still with Aidan Hall coming into the side, they're still going to remain a ruthless, tough side, especially around the football, and even without the experienced players that we've just mentioned, Artemis, Main, McQuilkin, Schloeth and Zach Strom, they're going to bring in some good talent from the Colts as well, who had a successful season last year, making it to the grand final. And those that were undrafted last year will have a huge opportunity to step up to the league side under Craig White.
Absolutely. Like, they lost Fred Rodriguez and Toby One to the draft, but, other guys stepping up. Ryder Luke as well, who got picked up by Fremantle. But Jacob Donald's one, captain last year. He'll come up. Hudson Pivac and Keith Wood, which I know they've got huge raps on. There's a number of guys from that grand final team in the Colts, and even reserves made a finals tilt as well last year. So I think they're well stocked, and I think while they haven't brought in household names, they haven't needed to as well. Like, they're just back in their system and what got them ultimately that premiership glory in the end.
And even without Zach Strom up forward, they've got a good weapon in Mitchell Gear, who kicked 5 in one of the pre-season games earlier this month. So they've got some weapons in that forward line who can bolster the scoring pressure, and it's more of a youthful setup that South Fremantle have got, but they're hungry for success after last year.
Yeah, they will be, and there's more to play for them. So, teams, as I said off the top of the show, like teams who win back-to-back, etched into history. Not to say that teams who win one aren't. Of course, it's very hard to win a premiership, but, that's the motivation for them.
They're looking for a back-to-back flags for the first time since the 50s. It's been a long while, but they're on their way. Craig White's side ready to unleash, as his motto says for his side. East Perth have done a lot of pre-season moves as well, as they hunt for their first premiership since 2002. One of them was their coach, Ross McQueen. He signed on till the end of 2028. A great move by the club. They've got a lot of faith in Ross McQueen after some great success in his first 3 years.
Yeah, a couple more years for him. Obviously, back-to-back grand final appearances, and he's not done yet. So, no surprises that both ways he's put pen to paper.
And so have these players as well. Darcy Craven, he's returned from a stint at the Brisbane Lions. Bit of a bummer that he didn't get his true opportunity at AFL level, but he's got another chance to make amends, so to speak, with a great season at East Perth. Luke Foley from Subiaco, he's come in. Damon Freitag from South Adelaide, and Cooper Stevens, he's as fit as a fiddle. He's raring to go after missing out last year with an ACL injury. And they replaced Nick Bonamelli, who's retired, Adam Balls, who's gone to Claremont, Jonah Brooks, who's crossed Derby Lions to go to West Perth, Luke Hallett to Perth, and Mitch Miller also has gone to West Perth. So as far as those faces go out, they present a lot of value to the best 22. But when you've got guys like Craven, Foley and Freitag and Stevens in the side, they've replaced players of high value with players of high value.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 guys have been on an AFL list that you just mentioned that are coming into Darcy Craven. I think the thing about Darcy Craven is, he got picked up from East Perth, very, very fresh into a league career, and obviously went over to Brisbane and got that experience. So imagine what he can do in a full year at East Perth as that sort of live-wire small forward. Luke Foley obviously played 30-odd games of AFL footy and comes across probably, recognising that East Perth may be a bit more in the window than Subiaco, and he wants to strike while the iron's hot. Don't know a heap about Freitag, but obviously any player coming over from the Sandford, that's a strong league. And then Cooper Stevens, former first-round draft pick, devastating ACL injury. Who knows what could have happened last year in that grand final if he was out there. But on those predictions that we did, the way too early predictions, I've tipped him for the Sandover medal. So it's a big call considering he hasn't played a game yet of WAFL footy, but first-round draft pick, ball magnet, and I think, the others in that midfield are going to thrive off him.
You've pulled the early big call here on Around the WAFL. It's only our first show, but I like where you're going with it. No disrespect to Darcy Craven, but, with the mid-season draft, it has its drawbacks. I think he was pulled into the AFL system too soon because he never got the chance to have a full season under his belt, and the lack of opportunity he had with Brisbane did result in that. Okay, he had the odd game or two, but never got to realise his full potential. I reckon a full season with East Perth will be under his belt, and then he'll have that right opportunity to get drafted at the end of the year because he's got heaps of potential.
He does, and he probably no worst club in terms of selection to be drafted to, probably no better club in terms of learnings and experience to learn off. So both ways, and he'll come back, no doubt, a better football, a bit more mature as well.
Let's go to Claremont, who again fell agonisingly short of a grand final last year, but they also have lost a lot of experience. Lachlan Martinez, Kai De Havilland, who's gone to West Perth, so has Menno Inverarity, Eric Benning, who's gone to Sharkland, but the biggest of the lot was Jai Bolton, who retired in November after a decorated WAFL career. Marked the end of an era for a very successful club.
Yeah, best player over the last decade or so for Claremont. Obviously, resume speaks for itself. Achieved everything that he could apart from that elusive flag. So hard decision, I'm sure, for him to make. He would have waited up for ages. I know last year we spoke about on the show that it feels like every year he goes for one more year, but unfortunately the curtains close on what is a wonderful WAFL career and a stately career as well.
But they do bring in Adam Balls from East Perth, who we talked about just moments ago, Tyson Headland, who's who's played with Kwinana in the Perth Football League. And Oliver Sheldrick's come back from a year of travel as well. Now, he's a handy defender midfielder, Oliver Sheldrick, and I reckon he could come in handy for Claremont, especially when they head into another finals campaign, if they go well enough.
Yeah, he's a good size, isn't he? Obviously comes from really good stock with Angus over at the Swans and his younger brother Lockie coming through as well. So, exciting times for the Sheldrick family, and particularly from a Claremont point of view, it was two of the boys and obviously Oliver back into the league setup.
Do you think Claremont's premiership window is still open after missing out so many times in these finals campaigns, especially in the last 3 years when they've had huge opportunities, yet they haven't been able to find that one extra step to get to the grand final?
I think it's open. I think, Prescott being still at the helm speaks volumes of that. I think, it feels like, again, we say, it's closing. Let's just see what happens. I think we don't want to write them off too early in this season. I think Bolton's going to be a loss, but I think they knew it was coming. I mean, he's 34 years of age. Couldn't have kept going on forever as much as he did. So I think, obviously it goes without saying, like, the team is more important. And the Colts won another premiership. Their kids will be coming up as well. Look out for a couple of guys from their Colts, such as Heath Melody, Benji Van Rooyen as well, who might be exposed to league footy because they're in the AFL Academy.
That's right. Benji Van Rooyen is going to be one to look out for. He had a great season in the Colts last year. What about Perth? They have really splurged in the recruiting department. A lot of recruiters from interstate have been the talk over there at Demonland. None more so than Charlie Dean. Now, you sung his praises a lot during the off-season, Rothy, but he joins a lot of great recruits who have come over from interstate and from other clubs. Case in point, Jesse Glass-McCasker, who's played a bit at the Perth Football League, had some time at Swan Districts, Luke Hallett at East Perth, Zach Harding from the Murray Bushrangers, and Indy Kirk from the Sydney Swans. But Charlie Dean has been number one on your radar.
He has been, 12 games at Collingwood, delisted last year and comes across. And, they got a bit of a track record for doing this now. Obviously, Parfitt, Constable, the former AFL players are loving Perth, and credit to the recruiting staff there and Adrian Barrett and co. He's going to offer real depth, and I think he's going to free up someone like an Elijah Scoble so much, because for someone who's only 21, I believe, or maybe thereabouts, he's had a lot on his plate. Has Elijah Scoble, so the experience of Dean coming in, Glass-McCasker's versatile, can go back. So, I think their key stocks are probably looking as good as they have in the last 5 or so years.
Especially that defensive setup. That back six is going to be a lot more balanced. They're going to share the workload a lot. And rather just having the workload fully put on Elijah Scoble, that will ease the pressure on him as well. And that will give part of the workload to the likes of Charlie Dean and Glass-McCasker. And that will create a more balanced backline for the Demons. And that could be a key, especially when going up against powerful forward lines from South Fremantle, Claremont and East Perth.
Yes, absolutely. And obviously some outs as well. Sam Simpson's probably the most notable one. He couldn't get his body right here, unfortunately. And good on him for sticking at it for longer than a year as well. So I think, he couldn't have probably given more with his body. He's going back to Victoria. Tyrone Thorne as well, the former Peel Thunder player, is an out. Regan Clark as well is a great servant of the club for a long time. Ben Fairbank as well has gone to West Perth. But there's a lot of ins. I mean, Indy Kirk, son of Brett Kirk, Sydney Swans champion, he comes over after spending a bit of time on the AFL list. Luke Hallett as well was in the state 18th last year for East Perth and can provide some service up forward. So they're well stacked, I'd say.
And so is East Fremantle, who are facing a big year as well after 2 straight elimination final exits. One of them stands out for me as we look at the ins and outs for them in 2026 amidst the outs of Thomas Bennett, Finn Gorringe and Cody Leggett, who have retired, along with Michael Tassoni. Milan Murdoch being the biggest out, but what an opportunity he had at the West Coast Eagles, and it's taken it with 2 hands in his first 2 games. The biggest in for me at East Fremantle is Liam Robinson, who's come over from Norwood. He is built as a solid power forward. He kicked 3 goals in 1 quarter in a pre-season game against Swan Districts. Good size for a forward, nimble for a man of his size as well, and that could create a better dynamic in that forward 50 for the Sharks as they head into a crucial year.
Absolutely, and they've recruited Oscar Smart as well, who played 4 AFL games for Essendon last year. Sat in the studio, had a chat with him on Shark Tales as well. He's quite the character, so watch out for him in the bleached blonde hair, and they're going to need him as well. Eric Banning, who spent time obviously on Fremantle's list, and Claremont, he gives them another ruck option as well, can drift forward. The talent's there, it's probably just more the dedication, you could say, from him, but he's still a young man, only 22 years of age. I'm really concerned about the loss of Milan Murdoch. I think it's great what he's been able to do, and it probably highlights how many other stately players out there that could do something similar if they just simply got a chance at AFL level. And I'll throw one at you, actually. So Milan Murdoch played 99 WAFL games up until this point.
Yeah.
Had never kicked 2+ goals in consecutive weeks during that whole time. Never. Not once.
Until now.
And he did it his first 2-week block in the AFL.
And fittingly, he kicked the sealer against North Melbourne on Sunday.
He did. So that's just a great story for him. And you could argue already story of the year from a WAFL perspective, to be honest. but I've got concerns because he's just been so reliable. He's been doing it for year in, year out, which has got him this chance. But Mitch Zaddo as well, X Factor, he's gone to Port Adelaide, which is terrific to see. But I've just got some concerns about East Fremantle. I think a bit of a transition time, and of course the club's much bigger than any individual. But it's not going to easily replace someone of Milan Murdoch. But they've got players there like Kyle Baskerville as well.
Second year as captain as well.
Jack Cleaver's going to have another year to his name. We know the workhorse that Tom Joyce is. So they've still got the players around, but I'm just a bit concerned that Milan Murdoch is going to be maybe two of a hole to fill.
Big continuity is going to be a big concern for East Fremantle's midfield with that loss of Milan Murdoch, but they are still expected to be a finals contender with those players that you mentioned, so they've still got some sizable depth in midfield. My concern is that forward line, because Cody Leggett was the anchor of that forward line for some time. Now he's gone. I reckon that's going to fall on Liam Robinson's shoulders.
Yeah, John Marsh as well, probably.
He played a bit down back against Swan Districts in the pre-season game, so they may be trying to experiment with him as a key defender.
Yeah, maybe, but I feel like they need obviously those forward options, as we just said. They've got Marlon back there. They've got other options. So, you don't want to... obviously, defence is the most important, one of the most important parts of the game, but also kicking goals is. So, it's a balancing act for Bill Monahan, but there's probably more experienced coaches than him, so I'm sure he's been getting to work.
He's been there and done that twice as a coach. He's desperate to get there a third time. Peel Thunder. Now, they've been out on the recruiting radar as well. Of course, we spoke during the off-season about Mason Cox. He, of course, is in the Dockers list. Could get some games at Peel Thunder this year. But East Fremantle, they've also lost another gun who's gone to Peel. Darcy Wills, who's among those that have made their way over to Peel Thunder, along with several interstate players from the VFL, namely Bailey Reeves from the Gold Coast, Lachlan Tardrew from Collingwood, and Darcy Wallinger from the Mount Barker and Great Southern League. So Peel Thunder, they've been... beyond their horizons when it comes to recruiting as they look to get back into the finals.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of strategy for them over the last couple of years is identifying guys who might not be household names in terms of who we're familiar with here in the WAFL, but they're still, very good state league players. Like you think of Archie Cowdo for an example last year, and they've added to this with the names you've just mentioned. Taj Wybird comes back as well, so Premiership player in 2024, went to Geelong's VFL program last year, comes back, so he'll add experience and nothing like a Premiership player amongst your ranks. So, Peel Thunder, I mean, that they've got that many ins and not many outs, so it's a strong sign, and hopefully, they can build on. Obviously, frustrating the year, but I think maybe once your Premiership defence is sort of out the window, they can sort of reset in a way. Just on that as well, I know obviously we recorded after because it was a mid-season draft pick, but Michael Selwood as well. Speaking of guys who've come in, terrific to see him get a chance at the Western Bulldogs and hold his own a lot over the last few weeks.
And with the side unbeaten as well, he played a great role against Adelaide, especially when the chips were down in that second half. Good on you, Michael. Great role he's played at the Doggies. West Perth, now they've also been expected to splurge big in recruiting, and they certainly have done that with Paul Sanzoni taking the helm for his first full season. We talked about Menno Inverarity. He left Claremont. Kai Dehavill and also Ben Fairbank from Perth. But the biggest one for me is Cohen Livingston, who spent some time on West Coast lists. Didn't get the opportunity that he deserved over there at the Eagles, but now he's back at a WAFL club. He's guaranteed an opportunity, and I reckon he's going to take a bit of the workload off Troy Ukic, who's been injury hampered, didn't have a lot of time over there at West Perth. But now they have got a full first-string ruckman that can do the work from the middle. Yeah,
absolutely, and I think Odin Jones as well comes back from an AFL list as well, who's had some injury trouble, so they could be battling it out for the second ruck position, but all going well, they could play in the same team if their bodies are right. How good of a signing is Connor West as well? Yeah. Probably didn't think he would come back to the WAFL, if I'm being honest. Yeah. I think he sort of expressed that his AFL days were done, and he was going to have some other interests outside the game, which he still has, but he's come back, which is a really good signing for them, and obviously dominated in the PFL for Scarborough last year, so that's great for them. Pegararo as well, he was sort of, a player that left. And
he had a gap year. He was travelling, and now he's made his way back to the red and blue as that number one key defender, because everyone out there at Joondalup knows that Pegararo, he's going to be that key shutdown defender against those forward lines that we talked about with East Perth, Claremont and South Fremantle. So those signings of Pegararo, Livingston, Odin Jones and Connor West, they're the big four for West Perth.
And the older guys are still going around, so you think of Cartel, Black, who's going to obviously try and notch up game 300, Nelson, are not. So these guys are going to add to the youth coming in, and it's exciting times for the Falcons. I think Brooks de Havilland, Inverarity, who's a Prendergast medalist, they were out on the outer of their other clubs, but West Perth have clearly identified that they're up to the level and come join the red and the blue.
No doubt about it. The red and the blue looking to fly high in 2026. So are Swan Districts after missing the 5 last year because of injuries after a heady run to the preliminary final the year before. They've got 3 retirees, Connor Blakely, Aidan Clark and the legendary Tony Knott, who all pulled the pin at the end of last season. But they've got some tremendous faces to make up for their losses. Jez Rigoni from Sandringham in the VFL. Jovan Petrick from Williamstown also standing out. Clint Hinchcliffe, as we talked about, the former Big Bash cricketer. And Cade Shalcraft from the Shepparton United Club in the Golden Valley League. Those are some big signings for the Swans.
Absolutely. It's great, as I said earlier, that someone like a Clint Hinchcliffe can come in. Jai Shalcraft's brother as well, bit of a family tie there. So obviously a couple of outs. Tony Knott, who, again, will never probably be achieved what he was able to do games-wise. And Aidan Clark, big loss as well. And as well as Connor Blakely, who was sort of only there for a year towards the back end as well, but still played a part in that reserves finals series.
What about their expectations on getting back into the 5? They've been hard at work during the pre-season. Andrew Prune's really putting them through the ringer in this pre-season with a lot of the younger players getting a lot of the workload in a couple of the pre-season games. I'm expecting them to really fight back and get into the 5, and especially with the new faces that are there, they bring in some valuable interstate experience.
They do, and they've, again, similar to what I was saying about Peel Thunder, they've identified guys from over east who might not be household names, but an opportunity in the WAFL, lucrative. So, we'll see what they're made of.
Subiaco are looking also to be a side that is rejuvenated. Jared Schofield back as coach. Not necessarily a new lion to the den, but an old lion to the den, so to speak. But have a look at these signings. This could be a very good list that Subiaco has got at their disposal. Jack Petrocelli, Ben Sokol coming out of retirement, Jacob Blight, former Richmond player, Will Bravo, also formerly of Richmond, and Nick Giolami and Noah Hibbins-Hargrave. So Subiaco, they've been hard at the recruiting table, and those faces are going to be valuable for the Lions if they're to reverse their fortunes.
Yeah, Sokol, another one, I forgot to mention him. He's obviously Simpson medalist and, Bernie Naylor medalist as well. So, he's come back under Schofield. Clearly that relationship has brought him back. And Noah Hibbins-Hargrave is probably the most unlucky player not to be drafted nationally last year. It was a bit of a shock. So he's come over with a family tie as well, with his old man being closely associated with the club. And then those other guys, Blight obviously trained with Collingwood in the pre-season, was hoping to get a rookie spot. That didn't land. And they had a bit of an affiliation with the Richmond VFL program both ways. So you mentioned those guys, Bravo, etc. coming in. Jack Berticelli, 90 games, AFL level. Interesting to see where they play him. Can go mid-forward. But I think I said in the wage early predictions, I think Jacob Blight could be the recruit of the year, and I think he might do well enough to land another spot in the mid-season draft.
Well, he won't be too far off from that prediction because he's going to have himself a big season and maybe be that sort of barometer of Subiaco's defence, because we touted him when he was at Peel Thunder as the number 1 defender to go into that mid-season draft. He got that opportunity at Richmond. Now he's here to prove that, like Darcy Craven at East Perth, he could have a full season under his belt and possibly look for another AFL spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, key position players don't grow on trees. He's very intelligent, got himself sorted off the field with a new business as well. So, if it doesn't work out for him, he's got his hands sorted. He's doing teaching as well.
No doubt about it. But who's going to be doing the teaching at West Coast? Of course, Cole Horsley is back as coach, and like what most of the other clubs have done, they have really gone in hard on new recruits. Will Burnett from Goulburn Valley, Sam Cipriani, also from the Murray Football League as well, Callum Jameson also, and Sasha Kernett from West Perth. So they've really gotten some big faces over there to see if they can further improve on 2025.
Yeah, Kernett coming back from a stint in the PFL. The Eagles, we obviously just want them to be as competitive as possible, but I think, if the AFL team can stay injury-free, obviously touch wood, but the likes of McRae, Schoenberg, the extra picks that they got in the draft to fill rookie spots, such as Fred Rodriguez, although he's suffered an injury in the pre-season. These guys, it's going to make them well-rounded. That's what you want. You want selection squeezes, and they won that game in South Fremantle last year unbelievably, but they'll be hoping for more than just the singular win, and building on that into 2026.
What would be a pass mark for the Eagles WAFL side with the new faces that they have got in the side as far as the amount of wins are concerned?
It's an interesting one. I would say, look, I'd hope no less than 5 wins.
Okay.
I think that's probably a baseline.
Yeah, I'll go around about 4 or 5. That'll be a good enough mark to, give the Eagles a nice step in competitiveness against the likes of, Swan District, Subiaco, West Perth, East Fremantle. They could be fighting for a spot in the 5 in 2026. So who knows where the Eagles are going to go. But the new faces that they have been taught well under Kyle Horsley. I went to one of their pre-season training sessions. They had a squad of 15, which is pretty much the norm these days in comparison to the professional players who train in the morning. But they're being taught well with Kyle Horsley's plan and all that as far as, getting kicks out of half back and their running game from midfield into attack. So they're learning a lot from Horsley, who's got premiership experience as a player.
Yeah, and good to see Callum Jamieson captain the WAFL team as well. Obviously delisted from the AFL side, but still captaining the WAFL side. So that speaks volumes of how much involvement he still wants to have, even though his professional career in entirety is come to a close.
WAFL fans, what do you think of some of the new faces of your club? Let us know on our socials, Facebook and Instagram. We'll take a break, and when we do come back, we'll have more of your questions as far as season 2026 is concerned, and the pre-season faces of the WAFL W as we gear up for them to begin their season this coming weekend. The new faces of the 9 WAFL W clubs, and of course some more of your questions after the break on the WA Sporting Hub YouTube channel and on your podcast provider. This is Around the WAFL's season 2026 summit. More after this.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the WAFL. This is our season 2026 summit, the first show of what is set to be an exciting year of Around the WAFL on the WA Sporting Hub YouTube channel and also on your podcast provider. Let's get into a couple more questions from our fans on Facebook and Instagram before we get into some of the new faces of the WAFL W competition from the 9 WAFL W clubs. Brad via Instagram has jumped on. Hey Brad, thanks for your question. He says, my worries with West Perth this year is their reliance on their forwards and the delivery from midfield into attack. Is the addition of Cohen Livingston really going to make a difference for the Falcons?
You don't want to put too much of an emphasis on Colin Livingston. He will come in and make an impact. He's the leading WAFL, West Coast WAFL goal scorer from last year. So, he'll have an impact. But again, different team, different role. And, he'll have to find his feet at first. So I think you've got to be patient with him. He's still young as well. Yeah, he is a very young player. He's still got, a lot of years in him. And, the emphasis on just one player in there is going to certainly add to the pressure of Cohen Livingston. So, you want to make it a little bit more balanced because they've got some great players in that side, not just Livingston, who have come into West Perth to try and find some success at WAFL level. Tanya via Instagram has jumped on as well. She says, hey fellas, I feel the finals race is going to be very close in the WAFL. Which team will be unlucky to miss the 5? Gee, if I had to pick one team, it's pretty hard. Bit put on the spot here. What do you think? That's also tough as well. Tanya's put us both in the hot seat when you're looking at it. I'm feeling it's either going to be Claremont or East Fremantle that'll miss the 5. You pointed out some good concerns with East Fremantle after the loss of Milan Murdoch. That midfield anchor, he's gone off the West Coast. Claremont, obviously with the retirement of Jai Bolton, but they still got some good experience in there. England, Rogers,
Eastland in the ruck, DeLacy up forward. It's either going to be one of those two, I think.
Yeah, I'd say East Fremantle then if I had to answer the question, but I'm not wishing that on them. But
No?
yeah, I think maybe East Fremantle, but hopefully for their sake they can prove me wrong.
We'll wait and see. Oh, I've been proven wrong more than once, obviously. Just ask Jack Schwartz of the Claremont WAFL W side. Norman, via our Facebook page, has also jumped in. He says, I hear that the state games this year are both going to be played on the same day at a WAFL ground. Do you know what's behind this decision? Yes, they will be played on the same day. In fact, it's a triple header in May. It's State Talent Showcase first, then the Women's State game against South Australia next, and then the third game of the day, the last one, will be the Men's State encounter against South Australia. I think with it being at a WAFL ground, they want to get a bigger crowd, and obviously at an empty Optus Stadium, it doesn't feel the same. Obviously, it's a different level of football compared to what we saw at Origin in February, but I think having it at a WAFL ground is a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's about time. Like, obviously, there's that discussion that, WAFL players who don't play AFL, it's their only opportunity to play Optus Stadium, which I get, but I think the crowd numbers probably speak volumes, and, it's probably not the best mechanism because you need an AFL ticket to be able to go to the curtain raise before, which is the state game, and I guess traditional WAFL people or people just wanting to go that don't want to buy an AFL ticket for the price of that just to go and see that. So I think having it at a WAFL ground is probably the solution.
Likely it's going to be either Mineral Resources Park or Sullivan Logistics Stadium, but I've been hearing from one or two scuttlebutts that the WACA could host it. It's a hard and fast ground. It's been redeveloped and it looks great and is suitable for football.
And the water slides as well. That could add to the spectacle.
That is something.
People want to check them out.
I tried one of those water slides, mate, and I haven't been the same since. And finally, Matthew has chimed in from our Instagram page. Our last question here on our season summit. Ross McQueen extending his stay as coach is a great move for East Perth long term. Will Ross lead the mighty Royals to the premiership this year? Go Royals. Well, Matthew's very confident about a Falcons flag Royals flag after two losing grand finals. They're every chance to do so.
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope so as well. It'd be a great story, and sort of, I know they did it twice, but you sort of have to lose one to win one. Some would say, hopefully for their sake, you'd have to lose two to win one in the end.
Well, East Perth, they're hoping it's a case of third time lucky this year. Okay, let's take a look at some of the faces of the WAFL W before we conclude our first show of 2026. Claremont, they've got back an ex-premiership player. She's returned after a medical placement over in Geraldton. Eva Campo, for me, is the biggest returnee for Claremont, and she's going to make a strong side even stronger this year.
Yeah, premiership player, which speaks volumes and comes back. So, she'll no doubt add plenty to Claremont's team, and I'm looking forward to what she can do and to set the tone.
Kian Perry and also Maggie Smith among the new faces for the Tigers. Maddie Smith coming in from Railways in the Great Southern Football League. Mackenzie Webb from East Fremantle is also among the new faces at the Sharks. Meg McCauley is another 19 only 19 years of age with high-level experience. And Bree Willis as well for East Fremantle, looking to turn the fortunes of the Sharks around after being eliminated in the finals.
Yeah, a couple of players come over. Mackenzie Webb as well, who has AFLW experience, comes over, will certainly help with their backline. Broken nose in the under-18 vs 23 game pre-season hit out, but she'll be ready to go hopefully. And East Fremantle, Storm Johnson's another one who's going to add some firepower up forward as well. So with the new coach Dave Eames, there's been a lot of talk obviously of the off-season about East Fremantle, but I think for their sake they'll be happy to set foot in a round one derby more than anyone and sort of put the noise behind them as much as possible.
And that's going to be a great opening. It'll be toughness and drama personified. We'll preview that game on Thursday. East Perth, they've also got some good faces in the side. Hope Ugle-Haywood, she played PFL with Curtin Wesley last year and playing 60 games at Swan Districts. She's going to be a valuable weapon in midfield and at the half-forward line. And Courtney Zapara, 38 goals in 12 games in the Southwestern League last year at Donnybrook. I reckon she's going to be a weapon up forward that East Perth have been desperately seeking. Yeah,
obviously tough year for them last year, East Perth, but a couple players, that you said coming through, and I think a couple more sort of Layla Ferns and a couple others in and around that East Perth. They just want game time, I think, more than anything. I think they're obviously searching for results, but I think it's a bit more important. It's about getting a game plan for them and getting some games into these younger players.
Now South Fremantle, along with their new coach Steph Wadling, Ash Gomes, the biggest new arrival at South Fremantle, crossing enemy lines to head over the Bulldog land with 141 games, state representation and time on the West Coast AFLW list. But also Michaela Tuakarena, Madison Evans, and Natasha Entwistle and Michaela Hyde among the new faces at South Fremantle. But the biggest one for me is Ash Gomes.
It is, it's hard to look past, and obviously controversial exit from East Fremantle, but new home for her. Michaela Hyde as well, coming over from Collingwood and Fremantle. So So they're well structured, and it's going to be a case, as I said, if they can get some more avenues to go, I think.
No doubt about it. Peel Thunder, they've also welcomed some new faces. Kate Bartlett, she's had a couple of seasons at community football, but she's back at Peel Thunder. And Nadia Brown, past play in the WA State 18s, fast and exciting around the ground. She can provide some flair in that midfield, and a couple of the Rogers Cup players have been promoted, so I reckon Peel are building on some of their youth players.
Yeah, they probably need more midfield support. Like, obviously it was left up to one or two individuals last year, so I think it's just going to probably take a bit more of a team effort for Peel Thunder. Obviously super successful, going back to sort of the COVID times of the WAFL W, so they're going through a little bit of a transition period at the moment, but I think there's some excitement there to watch out for.
What about Swan Districts? Two faces that stand out amongst the new class. Chloe Riley, she's gone from East Fremantle to the Black Ducks, will add plenty of poise and class to the side's front half. And a previous captain of Swan Districts, Jess Cox, is back at the club after returning from Box Hill in the VFLW and an ACL injury in late 2024. So the Swans will be welcomed by the return of Jess Cox.
Yeah, sort of full circle, isn't it, coming back, and obviously some cricket exposure as well. So a talented athlete. Chloe Riley as well, back-to-back leading goal kicking from past time from East Fremantle, comes over. She's going to help Taylor Edwards out a lot in that forward line. And it's pretty scary. You think Summer Yaron as well. You think other players in there.
Ash Sharp as well is another return.
Yeah, from Fremantle as well. So Swan Districts, look out for them, because yes, they lost Cara Dario and Ava Stewart to the draft, but other than that, they've sort of kept that core group together.
Dare I say it, watch out for Swans in 2026 as they redeem themselves from their heartbreaking grand final. Of course, speaking of Swans, that's our first Around the WAFL on location piece. That'll air on Thursday as part of our WAFL W Round 1 preview show. Dare I say it, watch out for West Perth as well in 2026. Zoe Huggett coming over via South Fremantle and is a dangerous forward. She is going to be the number one weapon up forward for West Perth and coincide with the return of one of their leading players, Kat Bennett, from a season-ending ACL injury last year. And they join faces Ellie McAvoy, Georgia Keane and Sienna Pollard, who's moved from Swan Districts.
Yes, and their Rogers Cup has been super successful, so some players coming out from that as well who are no longer too old for that age group. So obviously they lose Mia Russo. She was the first ever West Perth player drafted, so we should congratulate her on that since our last recording. Great milestone that I guess no one can take that away from her now, going as a top 20 pick to the Eagles. But I guess confidence though in that aspect. She was out last year and they managed to deal with it and win games. Sure, they didn't make finals, but it's not like she was there week in, week out last year and they were solely relying on her. So if anything, it's probably given them a bit of a time to try and replace her and figure out who else can step up in that role.
And those young faces have got a year under their belt now, so they'll be able to back up that work and gel as a good side when they're looking to contend for finals in 2026. Now, last year's preliminary finalists, Subiaco, they haven't got a lot of new faces in there. They're sticking with their current playing group, which is good. Obviously, Baker Denneman has done a wonderful job in gelling this side and getting them into a grand final. But they do bring in Bridget Karokin, 19-year-old, 165cm defender from the Giants AFLW Academy, and Courtney Lindgren, 174cm forward, selected by the Eagles in last year's AFLW squad and has performed well at East Perth at WAFL W level as well. I reckon she could bolster Subiaco's side even further.
Well, they're going to need it up forward because, as I said, Olivia Warmer's off to Richmond and Olivia Crane as well off to Port Adelaide. So both ends of the ground, losing a couple of their State 18 stars. So they're going to need it, but that midfield, the three-headed monster of Shepherd, Petrovsky and Steen is hard to look past, and they've got that core group together. So they'll no doubt remember that feeling of going out in straight sets last year, and they'll use that as motivation this year.
Finally, Perth. They're heavily favoured to feature in the finals this year. And why? Not only they've recruited well, but they've got some great new faces. Caitlin Cox, with 5 seasons of AFLW experience with Richmond most recently, she is joining the Demons in 2026. Amy Trindale and Isla Baldwin among the new faces in Demonland. They're eyeing off a big year in 2026.
They are, and Isabella Shannon was my pick for the Dara Kerr medal.
And it's not hard to see why.
She was up there and they didn't make finals in their first year. I think she's an absolute ball magnet, former St Kilda player, of course, and she's going to go from strength to strength. And Perth, they lost Fina Death Lefson to a mature age recruit to Richmond, so she's an out from a forwards perspective, but I think more ins and more outs and more calibre coming in rather than just the one individual.
And that's placed high expectations on the Demons side as they look to contend for a top 4 spot in 2026. Well, that's the first show under our belts, Rothy. The first of about 51 or 52 for the season ahead. Our biggest year yet.
Great to be back, Paul. Thanks to all the supporters and thanks to the Hen House for having us. I'll see you later in the week.
Thursday is when we preview our WAFL W season for 2026, and we look forward to your company on Thursday on the WA Sporting Hub YouTube channel and, of course, on your podcast where we preview all 4 matches coming up on Saturday, which include the grand final rematch and the People's Derby. What drama that is going to bring in the opening round of WAFL W football. And also Around the WAFL on location will be making its debut as we head out to Bassendean as Swans look to redeem themselves after grand final heartbreak last year. I'll see you Thursday, Rothy.
Catch you then, Paul.
WAFL fans, we'll see you on Thursday as well for our preview of round 1 of the WAFL W season here on Around the WAFL, your go-to WAFL podcast in 2026. Bye for now.